heard me.
Yes.
I am in love with you. And I know that love is just a shout into the void, and that oblivion is inevitable, and that we're all doomed, and that one day all of our labors will be returned to dust. And I know that the sun will swallow the only earth we will ever have. And I am in love with you. Sorry.
Hi, good morning, and welcome back to Yall. My name is Rachel. I am your host for this channel, and this week we'll be chit-chatting about all of the different yarny things I've been doing. I'll have a very short update on just what's been going on in my personal life, and of course, as always, some book content at the end. So if that interests you, I will try to attach a timestamp in the notes below. That way, if you're only here for the book content, you can jump ahead. It is a little bit more, it's deeper, it's more theological, but I hope that you're in for that. And I would love to hear your thoughts in terms of any part of the content of this channel. If you have questions, or you're like, yeah, we're not interested in that content, or you say too much, like all of those things, I love to hear from you guys. I know that we're not a big channel, and I kind of like that because you guys who are watching for a reason, and if you want to see more of something or less of something, please let me know. So without further ado, let's jump right into the yarn content. Okay, so this week the yarn has been a little crazy for me, and I guess what I mean by that is I was working really hard on my oldest whip because I really want to get it off the needles. Like, it's getting to be summer here in Texas. I mean, it's the end of April, April 29th. Oh, and I should say, this is episode number 10. So I feel like we're getting better, maybe. Anyway, April 28th. And this will be premiering at the very end of April anyway. And I really wanted to get my summer top ready to go and ready to wear as it gets hot and we have opportunities to wear tank tops here in Texas. So I've been knitting away trying to get this tank finished, and this is the sorbet tee, which is, I believe, Portuguese for ice cream. And I have already, I've modified it a lot. I talked about that earlier. First of all, the pattern doesn't call for stripes. I've got stripes. This is made out of a bamboo yarn, and the pattern calls for a cotton linen blend. So again, we're deviating. I added in this lace panel, which I have found the instructions for this lace panel in the Cascada tee, which was a shirt that I made for my mom. It's a free pattern, so if you wanted that lace chart, it's written and charted. And from working up a whole t-shirt with this, as well as now making this, I really feel confident with this lace motif. I know in previous videos I have said it was a struggle for me to get through the lace because I wasn't very good at reading my stitches at the time. I am a newer knitter, and I think just by having a consistent practice of this particular lace detail, I have gotten to understand it a lot better, and you can see it's so much prettier than it ever was in my mom's shirt, and it has been so much easier for me as I come around to the lace section to know what to do. So since last week, I really haven't done significant amount of work. I had one strap in progress last week, and now I have 4 straps pretty much all the same length. Now, here is our dilemma. I've tried this on, and I will insert a picture of the back of this here. And it looks really cool in the back. I am all about that. However, I've mentioned before on this channel, I am a new mom, a first-time mom, and my daughter is 6 months old. Before I got pregnant, I was a little bit I don't want to say waif-ish because I'm pretty sturdily built. Like I identify more of a athletic, is it a mesomorph? I'm a little squishy, but I'm not, I would lean more towards like a boyish figure before I got pregnant and had my daughter. Now I have this like whole chest to worry about that I did not have before, and it is an adjustment. Like, I don't want to say that I was completely flat up top, but I was not as curvy as I am now. And that is a major adjustment for me to figure out like what clothes are appropriate, how I want to be displaying my decolletage, is that the word? So figuring that out has been really unusual for me, and I am definitely a t-shirt girly. Like, most of the time I'm running around in a t-shirt or a tank top, and I'm learning that a lot of my tank tops are no longer what I would feel are modest, because I am much more busty than I was. Like, I used to just wear a sports bra, and who cares if my tank top was oversized, because my sports bra ended here and there was like no cleavage, so it worked great. Life is a little different now as a mom, and I'm still nursing, breastfeeding, and so like, anyway, this is probably TMI. Sorry, y'all. But the point of all of this ramble is just to say that the front of this tank top is not appropriate at all. And I think maybe if I were to try this on with a tank top, and not a tank top, like a sports bra like I used to wear, I might be able to make this work. But as it is, like, I could not go braless in this. And that was kind of one of the hopes. So I am gonna go ahead and, after I'm done filming, see about getting some footage, whether that's a picture or something of the front of this, and maybe I'll have like a sports bra on so you can see. But I need to decide if I want to like I could do this. I have plenty more of this blue teal color, and so I could pick up stitches and work like a built-in camisole in this tank top. I could tear back the front sleeves and do some flat work before I go back into the straps, because right now it's just really, really open and inappropriate for everything. So I think those are kind of like the two main things I'm considering. I even thought that it might look neat to do this lace motif in the front. So it's like you could still see skin and tattoo underneath, but you are primarily covered by the lace. So I would love to know what you guys think. I am gonna put this on hold until I decide what I want to do, because this has been a lot of work already, and I'm sure other knitters wouldn't think so, but I've mentioned before, I'm a new knitter. I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom, and this has really taken a long time, and it is so close to being a functional, beautiful, wearable garment, but it's just not there right now, and I don't want to rush into it and just say, well, that's good enough, and never wear it. Like, I've put a lot of time into it, and so I want it to work. I just know that as it sits right now, it's not an item I would ever reach for or wear, and I don't want that to be the fate of this whip. So the other thing is, just so you guys can maybe see here, there is a like yarn over and slip stitch or slip knit involved in this edge, and so whatever I do is gonna have to contend with this edge. I don't want to hide or cover up the work that I did to achieve this finish. I'm sure I'm not showing this very well at all for you guys, but it's kind of rolling in. Hopefully it will show better when it blocks and maybe I'll insert a picture of the pattern so you guys can like see other people's finished edges, but I don't want to cover that up, and I don't want this to just be like a hurry up and finish and then I never wear it. So please provide input below on what you think I should do. And now I have been talking about this whip for 7 minutes, so let's talk about the next one. Okay, so after I got my Sorvette into a sort of like, it's finished / in timeout / on pause, I realized I'm like, okay, I can't really work on that anymore. I could not work on my linto. I could, but I couldn't. I didn't want to work on my linto because I was really wanting to get some double pointed needles so that I could just do those to do the sleeves. And so those two things were kind of like on hold most of this past week. So I thought and another thing is that the hair, Tilly the hair from the book that I talked about last week, I will link it below because I don't remember what it's called. I want to say Animal Friends, but I know that's not it because that's Animal Friends with Peek-a-Pow, and that's a crochet pattern book. But this is the little bunny head that I had showed you guys last week. It was my sort of secret cast on that I'd been working on but hadn't really told you guys because I thought, at any moment I might just like frog it and start over. So nothing new with the head, but I no longer have a yarn mustache. It's like a yarn beard, or like a really, what is that? What are those mustaches like Yosemite Sam? A handlebar mustache? I was showing my husband the footage of last week's podcast and I was cracking myself up laughing about my little yarn mustache. So this is just the body of the hair and it's very simple. I don't love working flat. I enjoy working in rounds, but because this is such a small circumference, like it's grown now, so I could probably move it over to circular needles, but I kind of feel like I want to. I think it'll be more comfortable. When I was working these like really narrow sections before all the increases happened, I was so thankful that it was worked flat, and I understood why the pattern designer does seamed dolls rather than circular dolls, which I've mentioned before is my preferred method for crochet, and translating that into knitting is generally my preferred knitting method as well. So I made some progress on this, and these are like little sock needles that I've like strung together, and I'm just kind of transferring the work back and forth. I really want to join somebody's knit night, and the one that's local to me is on a day that I already have a commitment, so I haven't had the opportunity to be part of an in-person knitting community, but I am suspicious I knit strangely. I don't know if there's other self-taught knitters out there that feel that way, but when I'm left-handed, so when I'm knitting, the work goes from this side in my right hand and it gets knit into my left hand. And then when I'm purling something like this, for example, where I'm working flat, I don't turn my work. I keep my work facing me and I purl from the left onto the right needle. So is that the way you guys work flat? Like, I don't know. I can shift all of my work back to my left hand and purl onto, I can shift my work onto my right hand and purl onto my left needle. However, I'm not doing that for this because I want to get better at purling and I want my stitching to be consistent. And so I'm not trying new stuff within this same project. So maybe the next toy I make, I'll experiment with doing it the second way I mentioned. But I would love to know from you guys, like, what is it called? What am I doing here? I mean, I know I'm knitting, but like, I don't know what method I'm doing. I know there's continental. I know there's, is it English? I don't know. I know there's different types, and I know that the way I do it, I'm fairly certain is weird because I'm self-taught and I'm a crocheter originally. So anyway, comment below, let me know what craziness I'm doing. But yeah, I haven't made a ton of progress on this hair. Anytime I had a moment when my daughter was down for a nap, I was working on this. So that was like kind of the middle of this week. And then yesterday, I think it was yesterday, no, 2 days ago, my set of double pointed needles arrived in the mail, and I just got on eBay, My mom's a knitter, and so she had mentioned to me, like, oh yeah, like it might be worth having a whole set of double pointed needles because you never know when you're going to need them, and you can get pretty big sets that cover a range of sizes on eBay for like really cheap. And so I had like looked at them before but didn't pull the trigger because I didn't want to have all the things. That is my personality type, is when I get into a hobby, I want all of the things needed for that hobby. So you guys should see my crochet hook collection and all of the miscellaneous yarns that I could possibly need for almost any project except for a sweater. I don't own sweater quantities of like anything, but I have a lot of odds and ends and a lot of I have enough to make a blanket, but I wouldn't want to make a yarn a sweater with any of the yarn that I own right now. That's like, except for the yarn I have for Luke's sweater, my husband. I am going to be making him a sweater next, and sorry, this is like a whole tangent, you guys. But I do have a sweater's quantity for him in that fingering weight. I think it's Knit Picks Hawthorne. But anyway, tangent over. I had decided to pull the trigger on getting these double pointed needles. They're just bamboo. They're super cheap. They're not very fancy, but it's 75 pieces in the set. I got it on eBay. It was like not even $20, and they arrived in the mail 2 days ago. So I was thrilled for that. And the day they arrived, I had a glass of wine and was gonna like start picking up the sleeves for my linto. Well, the linto is done on 2 different size needles, and one of the sizes is a US 10 or a 6mm, and my dyslexic brain told me 10mm. So here I am trying to put 6mm size loops and live stitches onto a 10mm size needle. Like, you see the disconnect here. That's 4mm different. So I had gotten all mixed up and was very frustrated that night. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put it away. Rachel doesn't get to do any knitting tonight because I can't figure this out. I was getting frustrated. Well, in the light of the next day, and having my wits completely about me, I realized I had the wrong needles that I was trying to use. So here I am working on the sleeve of my linto with my double pointed bamboo needles, which I really like, even though I can feel like there's some irregularity in the needles themselves, like as I have ran my hand along them. Not all of them, but like one of these needles for sure has like a little bit of like a whoop, squiggle in the middle, but I don't think that really matters. It is very unusual for me to knit with wood because I have never knit with wood before, but I thought, you know, this is a very basic tool. I will probably only use them with the sleeves, but it'll be nice to have. And I'm hoping that because I went from really slick ChowGoo metal needles for the body to wood needles for the sleeves, it's not gonna make a big difference when I block out. I mean, it's a very loose gauge. I really don't think it's gonna be obvious, but here is what I have. I do have a hot mess in the underarm section here, so I am going to have to clean that up when I go back and do ends and everything. But here is the progress I have made on my linto. So not a lot because I've really only been working on this for like the last day and a half, because between the needles arriving in the mail, my uncle and his partner arrived back here from being in San Antonio for Fiesta, and they spent the end of, was it yesterday? So they came in on Friday and then they left on Saturday. They flew out. And so, but yesterday was like a chaos of them getting out the door to go to the airport because they have to like repack all of the stuff that they got. And then of course we love visiting with them. We talk theology and philosophy and world current events and world affairs, and should books be banned in public school, and like all of the complicated questions. So I love when my uncle comes. Like, I very much enjoy it. I think it's such an interesting time because I think in some degree he's poking at my life philosophies, but I think also he genuinely wants to know. And because he lives in France, he is not experiencing like the US. He is a US citizen, but he's not experiencing the US the way that he would if he lived here. So I'm not going to get political on this podcast or anything, but it is very interesting to discuss world affairs with somebody who has a vested interest here, but is also living in another part of the world. So I always enjoy his visits, and they're always too short, and also in some ways not short enough. I've mentioned before, my house is not very big, and so to have 2 house guests here who are traveling internationally, as well as a child, it's just a busy time. So I didn't really do a lot of knitting on my Lento since I started knitting on it again, but I have made decent progress on this one sleeve. I will pop in footage of me wearing this Lento, just so that you guys can see kind of how it's fitting. I obviously still have work to do on the body, as well as the whole other sleeve and finishing up the sleeve I've already got going. So I've got plenty of work ahead of me. But now that I'm cruising on this sleeve, it's mindless and joyful because the yarn is variegated, and I'm so tickled to be back working on this. I cannot wait for this to be an FO, but I don't think I ever finished that thought about Tilly the hare, the rabbit that I'm working on. But the Lento has to be on hold because the baby who I'm making the rabbit for is due in June or July, but the baby shower is literally next weekend. So I don't think it's gonna be done in time. I'm not that fast of a knitter, and that is very tiny knitting, very tight gauge. Like, I'm using sock needles, and it is DK weight yarn. I think it's DK. It's just Hobby Lobby cotton yarn. But it is so snug and so tight. Yeah, this is, well, I don't know. No. Is this a worsted weight? I'm sorry, y'all. Like, you're watching me just read a yarn label, but I didn't realize this is a medium or a number 4, so I'm pretty sure that's worsted weight. So I'm using sock needles to knit a worsted weight yarn, and it's just tedious. It's hard. Like, I cannot wait to have this rabbit done. It is gonna be so cute. And like, already I can tell that it's gonna be quite a large doll. I think the pattern says it's like a 16-inch doll. So that's what, like 300? No. I don't know what the centimeter conversion is. I think that's like 30 centimeters, 300 millimeters. So I will put that in I think I'll put that in the listing of what that converts to centimeter wise. But the pattern says it's going to be a pretty big doll, and I'm realizing like I have a lot of work to do if I have any hope to have it finished before the baby shower. So we'll see if I get to give this gift next week or not. I'm suspicious the answer is not, but that's okay. It'll be fine. The only other thing that I wanted to say is that if you are like me and you don't have a huge knitting community in your local circle of friends or community, then make your own. Like, I'm done with the whips. I've kind of interspersed and rambled the whole way through about future plans as well, but I just want to sign off before I get into the book content by saying, if you don't have people in your life that make, teach them. Like, maybe not everyone here is a teacher, but my sister-in-law and my little sister and some of my other friends who are sort of like crafty oriented but maybe weren't doing that craft when I met them are now doing these crafts. So like, I had a knitting friend that learned to crochet as we became friends, and so her and I will sit on the couch and knit or crochet and chit chat or watch a movie or just, I don't know, do life together. And my sister-in-law, my little brother's wife, she is amazing. Marley, if you're watching this, hi. I love her, and I am so thankful that my brother brought her into our family. But she has a TikTok, and she goes live on there crocheting, and I'm 90% certain, if I'm remembering correctly, that she didn't crochet before she joined our family. And they got married almost a year ago now, so they're sneaking up on their first anniversary. But like, I have made a new fiber friend. Like, literally, I helped cultivate her being involved in the knitting and crochet community. So if I can get her TikTok channel, I will link it below. But I just love that her and I have that in common and can like have that overlap. And the mom, sister-in-law who I'm making for this rabbit, she wants to learn, and so I actually gifted her a Woobles kit, and I'm hoping that as she finds time in her life, she's about to be a mama of 2, so who knows when she's gonna have the time. But crochet is better hobby, I think, for when you're a busy mom. But hopefully she'll be learning. She's said she wanted to learn, and I've told her lots of times, I'm like, please don't like feel obligated, but if you do want to learn, like, here. So, and she sends me like patterns and different cool stuff that she finds on the internet that's like crochet. And so I feel like I've like made knitting and crocheting friends, and like even one of my nieces wants to learn. And I just messaged her mom today about like, hey, can we have some like one-on-one time where I show her what I know, because she's interested, and so I want to help her learn that. And I just think it's so special that people are sharing the things that they're making, and that like there's a whole section of us on YouTube who make, and then we video to share with like our friends that are out in the ether who are also making. So yeah, that's my ramble. If you don't have any knitting or crochet buddies, teach a friend, because it is a wonderful community to be part of, no matter what your background or other hobbies are. Like, it is an area where we can come together and have commonality and share something that can bring us all a lot of joy. So, I mean, that's why we get on here and talk to you guys about what we're making, is we're sharing the joy that we have from the projects that we've got going. So, and the heartache, yeah, there's some heartache involved. So on that note, make sure you comment below on what I'm gonna do with that sorbet tank, because I still have no idea. And I think that's it. I have rambled a ton this episode, but hopefully it wasn't challenging to listen to. I don't think I did and as much as I did last episode. My husband is thankfully out practicing the violin in the garage because our daughter is sleeping. And so I think there's no background noise this episode. That's all I want to say. On to the books, you guys, on to the books. Okay, so we're gonna chit chat a little bit about the books I'm reading. And this week I haven't been reading as much, I think just because it's been a little bit of a busy, weird week. But I did finish 2 books. I finished Crazy Dangerous by Andrew Clavin, and that one was really good. It's geared towards like, it's YA fiction, and it's about a teenage boy who meets a girl in the woods, and kind of this sort of thriller plot line. I don't want to tell too much and give it away, but very good. It is not written for women. It's not really written for adults necessarily. It's written for young adults, and it is really well done. There's no steamy content. It's not violent, but it is exciting and supernatural and modern in like the element of danger. So very interesting story, so much different than most of the books that I read, but well written, well thought out, just enjoyable. Kind of a weird perspective on mental illness, but still fascinating. So Crazy Dangerous by Andrew Clavin. If you're wanting something a little bit different than the same old, I would recommend that. Or if you have any teenage boys in your life, even teenage girls maybe, but it's not, it doesn't focus so much on relationships. It's a lot more about the adventure of this 15-year-old boy. So that one was quite good. And then the other book that I read this week was called 5 Minute Detective. I think that's what it's called. No. I'll have to put the name below, but it is essentially about a guy who has a brain injury of sorts and is a modern manifestation of Sherlock Holmes, but in a really quirky way. And I mean, Sherlock Holmes is quirky already, so like the author captures a lot of that quirkiness. It was an interesting read. It was a little bizarre, but also definitely funny. And I see where like the author was trying to parallel the Sherlock Holmes story. So if you like Elementary, if you enjoyed Watson or any of the modern Sherlock Holmes stuff, you will probably enjoy that book. I want to say it's by Drew Hayes, and it is part of a series. I don't know that I'm going to continue reading the series just because it was good, but it wasn't like, oh my gosh, like I have to have all of these books. So do with that information what you will, but that was what I read this week. I also, you've heard me rave on this channel before about C.S. Lewis and his books, and I say read all of this content I'm listening to, but I am listening to the complete collection of C.S. Lewis's books. And so one of the other ones I finished this week was The Great Divorce, and I thought I had read that one before. Again, air quotes around read because listening, but I felt like I had, heard that story before, but I couldn't remember. And then I was getting to like a certain part in the story, and I was like, okay, I do remember this. And the thing that's so interesting about the way C.S. Lewis writes is it's fiction, it's fantasy in many cases, but he uses the analogy of fantasy to try to communicate a deeper, more complex theology or concept. And so The Great Divorce, he's talking a little bit about heaven and what heaven might look like. And I don't even want to say heaven. The afterlife might be a better way of describing it, because you are following a character, and that character is running into other people, and he has a guide along the way, and he meets like a lady who is happy and joyful and fulfilled, and she meets what we find out to be her husband, who is small and petty and wrapped up in this one thing. And so he can't join her in the joy of the afterlife because he is clinging so tightly to what was so important to him in life. Same thing with another character that he meets who she lost her son at a young age, and it doesn't say when that tragedy happened, but there's just like hints at her story, and you watch the way that she can't let him be free. She has to hold so tightly onto this child that she lost. And so it's just a really fascinating view of what the afterlife could be, what heaven might look like. And it's just told in a very interesting way. And so if you're interested in more complex concepts and just theory about what the afterlife could be, whether that's purgatory or heaven or hell, like, and the thing I like about Lewis is that he is very respectful of the idea that he doesn't know. Like, very few people in recorded history have come back and shared what they experienced after life. And so it's more of a like, this is how it could be. We don't know. So I find that interesting. But I am re-listening to, like, I had finished that section and was moving on to his book called Miracles. And I'm only partly listening to that one. It seems a little bit complex. And the thing that I find interesting is when I listen to things like Miracles or The Great Divorce, like, because I'm doing other things in my life, driving or doing chores or whatever, I'm not 100% tuned in every single time. And I maybe don't always get the more complicated concepts, but because I've listened to some of these stories more than once, I get something new out of it, or something stands out to me differently when I listen to it again. And I don't re-listen to many books, but C.S. Lewis is complicated enough that I feel like I get something new every time I listen. So there is a concept in Mere Christianity that I have quoted before to friends, and I just think it's a really well expressed sentiment, but I always get it wrong. And so I've like rewound in the audiobook back to Mere Christianity so that I can find it in the like physical book, so I can highlight it so that I'm not misquoting him because I do get the quote wrong every single time. And I've listened to this book maybe 5 or 6 times, so you think I would have it by now, but I think I need to like hear the auditory aspect of it and then go in and find the written version of it to be able to like memorize the quote and really be able to share it with people in an accurate fashion. So anyway, that was a little bit of a ramble on the books, and I'm not sure who would find that content interesting. I know that the knitting and fiber craft community is very diverse, and so you might not even believe in Christianity, and that's totally fine. I hope that you are curious about it and are willing to like approach it with an open hand, because I think a lot of times people get the wrong message about what Christianity really is, which is one of the reasons why I think Mere Christianity is such a good read, is because it's very plainly spoken. Like, some of C.S. Lewis's stuff is very like high-minded, complex concepts, but Mere Christianity talks about like what probably 90% of Christians believe is like fundamental, and puts it in a way that like makes a lot of sense. And if you're not really familiar with C.S. Lewis or what his theology or background is, and non-Christians are probably like, theology? Like, what is she even rambling on about? But just to give a little bit of backstory, Lewis was an atheist for a really long time and had a lot of heartbreak in his life, and really in fighting to understand the world around him, the tragedy that he has experienced. I mean, he was injured in World War I, and from the very little bit that I know about him, had a really hard life. And his faith grew from chit-chatting with believers and non-believers, and looking into like, okay, what does the Bible really say? What are these Christians on about? And just by trying to make sense of his world and the hurt in life that he experienced, came to know Christ and came to become a Christian from being an atheist and from just probably feeling like the world was a little empty and without comfort and without reason, but also wanting to make sense of his world. And so I find him to be a really compelling author, and hope that you would be interested in picking up his stuff, even if you don't subscribe to what I might believe. So anyway, that's my little, I don't know, what's the word? Hype for this book and this author. You'll hear me talk about him more because I really do like his work. But yeah, that's enough about books. Well, if you have hung in to the very end, all I can tell you is thank you. I think at this point, especially if you've been here since episode 1, I can firmly describe you as a friend, even if we haven't met, even if we have not connected. I have been sharing my heart, my random ADHD, dyslexic brain, tangent thoughts, and rabbit trails, the things that I love and have enjoyed. And this is just a really nice opportunity for me to connect with other people that might have the same interests. So thank you so much for hanging in. I love to know that I'm probably not talking to myself on here. If I am, that's okay too. But I think that's all for now, folks. Till next week. Take care.